What's going on, you guys? I am super excited. I'm going out right now to check out my mailbox. I'm hoping that the latest issue of 5280 magazine is in there. They're actually sharing Denver's top 8 best suburbs, and I'm really excited to go through all of this with you guys in today's brand new episode of Living in Denver. Let's go. All right, super excited, guys. It was in the mailbox, so I'm gonna go through all 8 of these Denver suburbs with you today, sharing with you my personal reasons why I think these are all great choices. Really excited to share all this with you guys today. All right, super excited. As I said, today it was in the mailbox as I was hoping it would be. 5280 magazine. This is always one of the best publications in the Denver area. They put out some great content. And this issue today is actually sharing 8 of the top Denver neighborhoods, or should I say suburbs, for 2025. I'm gonna go through all 8 of these with you guys in depth. We're gonna talk about the population, the average median home prices, what are some of the best parks, and just what makes each of these so special, as well as some actual statistics like the best schools and some of that stuff that's coming from some very reputable sources. So first and foremost, we're gonna start right off, again, with 5280 magazine. Really, really cool, guys. And I'll also actually have this linked in my video if you guys wanna check out the full article yourselves. But first and foremost, number 1 is actually where I live here in Littleton. So Littleton is always gonna be one of my favorite spots to share with viewers like yourselves because Littleton is awesome. There's so many great things about it. As far as where it's located, so Littleton is located about 10 miles south of downtown Denver in that south and southwest side of town. And it's also just to the west of Greenwood Village, which is a very affluent and expensive area. So Littleton is also becoming just more and more popular over the years. It's been popular since I've been a little kid out here, but definitely continuing to get even more so. And it's also just a little bit south of Lakewood, which is another really popular area. So as you can see on the map here, it's in a great location just southwest of town. So as I said, I live in Littleton, and one of the areas that I like the most is in Grant Ranch, which is about a 5 to 10 minute drive from downtown old historic Littleton, which is incredible if you haven't checked that out. Lots of great restaurants. One of my personal favorites is a Mexican style restaurant called Palenque. It has one of the largest mezcal menus, I believe, in the entire state. So definitely check out Palenque, as well as a ton of other just locally owned and operated businesses. And I have a lot of clients that I've helped over the years that have moved from out of state to Colorado. And one thing they often ask me is just areas that have really good walkability. And this is definitely one of them, especially if you are finding homes around this old historic downtown. But in addition to that part of Littleton, there's also so much else going on. There's Columbine High School and Clement Park, which is really close also to where I'm at in Grant Ranch, but also just a ton of other very well-established neighborhoods, again, on the southwestern side of Denver. Being on the southwestern side of Denver, one thing that I love about being in Littleton, you have really good views of the mountains, but also much better accessibility to get up to the mountains than you would if you lived somewhere out further east or maybe up further north like Thornton, Erie, Brighton, all these areas up north, and also again out east like Aurora. You're just gonna have to spend a lot longer on the road to get to go up to the mountains than you would if you were in this Littleton area. Now, one other really cool thing I'm gonna be doing in this video, just very similar to what they did in the 5280 magazine, for each of these 8 neighborhoods, I'm gonna be sharing with you just some real life statistics on real estate. So first and foremost, the median home price here in Littleton last year was $617,000. That comes out to about $280 of a median price per square foot. And we were seeing the median days on market, so how long it was taking for the home to get sold, at 23 days. The population for Littleton is just over 44,000 residents, and the median household income was $96,611. The one big highlight though of Littleton that I think was very important to recognize is they also ranked in 5280 magazine the public school rating, and for Littleton it got an A. If you want to learn a little bit more about the schools for all 8 of these neighborhoods, these suburbs, please check out niche.com because they have a really good resource there to check out. but A is obviously as good as you can get, so that's a great factor when you're considering these 8 suburbs. One of the other really cool things about Littleton that I love is how many acres of open space and miles of trails that are available for anybody, but especially people that live here in the Littleton area. In fact, they say that there's over 1,400 acres of park space and over 200 miles of trails all within Littleton. Definitely a couple of my favorites. Check out the Bear Creek Lake Park, and also check out Clement Park, which is located really close to Columbine High School. Has a ton of open space, lots of fields, a lot of games and stuff going on the weekends. And it also, if you are familiar with the Columbine tragedy about 20 years ago, there's also a memorial there for all of that, which is very somber, but also pretty special. Now, one last thing before moving on from Littleton, I didn't know this, and I even lived here, but they actually had a Guinness Book of World Records established in 2007 for the largest dog wedding ceremony. And what I mean by this, so they actually had 178 canine couples say I do. Kind of weird, but something else I thought was worth sharing with you guys. All right, so now we're gonna jump right into number 2 out of these 8 suburbs featured in 5280 magazine. And this one is gonna be Arvada. I actually have another client that I'm helping right now buy a house, and we've been doing a lot of our home search in the Arvada area. And I grew up just south of Arvada in Wheat Ridge, and I know Arvada very well. But just being back up in this area a lot more over the last 2 or 3 weeks has really reminded me how special this part of Denver is. And definitely an area that I think is worth checking out if you think what's really important to you is accessibility to the mountains, but also maybe a little bit more lenient homeowners associations, or should I say lack thereof, because a lot of Arvada is actually what's considered unincorporated Jefferson County. That just means there's less restrictions, and maybe you're somebody that works from home. You even have the ability to have your home also double as your office or as your business. So this can't be allowed in a lot of other parts of Denver, but Arvada in this unincorporated Jefferson County is one of the few areas where you are able to do this. Now, talking again about some of the statistics that I want to share with you guys for all of these suburbs, with Arvada, the median sale price last year was $642,000. The median days on market was a little bit less than Littleton. It was at 22 days on market. The population is significantly bigger from Littleton. Population in Arvada is actually 121,414 residents. And the median household income was also a bit higher. It was $113,396. And then last but not least, when it came to school ratings, another probably a good factor for why Arvada was also in the top 8, it also scored as an A-. So very similar to Littleton. And when it comes to Arvada, some of the best schools, according to sites like niche.com with this A- grade, it includes schools like Arvada, Arvada West, and another one that's really an up-and-comer in the last few years known as Ralston Valley. As far as where Arvada is located, on a Google map, you can check it out. You can see that Arvada sits just northwest of Denver, just above Wheat Ridge, like I said, where I grew up, and then also just a little bit to the east of Golden. It's also a great area if you do commute potentially occasionally to Boulder, because you have a very easy access along Highway 93 to get up to the Boulder area. So overall, Arvada just has a great location for anybody that wants to be on the north and on the west side of Denver. So similar to Littleton, where we have that old historic downtown, Arvada actually also has what's called Old Town Arvada. You can always tell where it's at because there's a big water tower, Old Town Arvada, and it has also great walkability. So again, lots of locally owned and operated businesses. And one of my favorites is not in the Old Town part, it's actually just a little bit to the north in an area close to Stanley Lake, but it's a restaurant and also a bar called Steamer's Coffee House and also Jack's Sports Bar. They're connected, and the reason I wanted to share this one with you guys, my sister, who has special needs, actually was employed here for several years, and it is just an awesome place. They employ tons of special needs adults for all different capabilities. And my sister, she actually helped out in the kitchen side where they made these really delicious jams and jellies. And they were made, again, completely with the assistance of special needs adults. So giving a greater purpose behind having these jams and jellies to sell at farmers markets, as well as you can buy them actually at the coffee shop. Now, one last thing on Arvada before moving on to number 3. I also just want to share how Arvada was recently named a total biker's paradise. And I actually didn't know this until reading this article by 5280 magazine. So just sharing some content that I learned as well today. With this 5280 magazine feature, they talk about how the city is actually recognized as a bicycle-friendly community by the League of American Bicyclists. So what this means is you can ride the 7-mile Arvada bike loop that connects several different city parks and even cuts through the Red Rocks Community College campus. Now they've even got a bicycle training course where kids can learn to ride safely. It's over ½ acre on this miniature streetscape of little roads, signs, obstacles. So it's a really cool, unique thing that Arvada recently started doing. So just if you're curious on that, just look up the Bicycle Friendly Community by the League of American Cyclists. All right, so now jumping into number 3. Number 3 is going to be all about Ken Caryl. Ken Caryl is a little bit unique and funny because there's different ways to say the name. So I hear people say Ken Caryl. I actually often like to use the term Ken Caryl, but I wanted to share this one with you guys with a little personal story. So it ranks number 3 here in the top 8 suburbs of Denver by 5280 magazine. But I actually have some really good close family members that I helped sell their house in Ken Caryl last year. And not just in Ken Caryl, but a very specific part of Ken Caryl known as the North Ridge at Ken Caryl. So with Ken Caryl, I actually want to also share a personal story because I have some family that I helped sell their home just last year in the Ken Caryl area, but specifically in an area called North Ranch at Ken Caryl. And this is one of the coolest spots in town. So definitely you guys want to check out North Ranch. I have a whole other video all about North Ranch that I'll share with you as a link up above. But the reason I wanted to talk a little bit more about why I love Ken Caryl, it's such a cool area that's right up against the mountains. So it's on the far, far west side of Littleton. And you have just amazing access, not just to go up and go skiing and hit up all the mountain towns, but there's just all this great trail system within Ken Caryl where you don't even have to really leave your suburb or your neighborhood to get outside and really enjoy a lot of what the great things that Denver and Colorado have to offer. Also, on top of just the views, you have a lot more wildlife on this side of town. When I was listing this house I'm talking about last year, we actually had frequently bear, bobcat, and a ton of deer that almost act just like the neighborhood pets in the area because they're so calm and domesticated at this point. They'll be sitting in the front yard, just hanging out on the back porch. Pretty much anywhere you go in Ken Caryl, especially this North Ranch portion, you're going to find a ton of deer. So now let's just talk though about some of those statistics that I'm sharing that are consistent with every one of these 8 suburbs. So with Ken Caryl, the median sale price was $550,000 last year, which comes out to $288 per square foot. It was actually longer on the days on market with a median of 37 days. And the population is quite a bit smaller than the last one, Arvada. With Ken Caryl, we're actually only looking at 33,772 residents. The median income for Ken Caryl was a little bit over $100,000 at $116,838. And as far as the schools go, this also got an A-. Most residents that are in the Ken Caryl area, they feed into either Chatfield, Columbine, or Dakota Ridge High School. I grew up going to Wheat Ridge High School. We'd always compete against these schools. I actually ran cross country in high school, and Dakota Ridge always had one of the best courses of anywhere we'd run for the season. So I definitely love this part of Denver when it comes to schools, just because they all do have really good, just kind of outdoor areas surrounding the schools, which just feel a little bit more outdoorsy and kind of that Colorado lifestyle that you might be expecting if you're not from here. Now, one last thing I'll also share when it comes to median home prices. I mentioned how the median home price for Ken Caryl was only about $550,000. I do want to make a little side note though, that North Ranch area that I've spoken so highly of, that is a much higher price point. Homes in that area are typically $1.5 million and up. And that's because there's a lot larger lot sizes. They're in a much more private area within Ken Caryl, and it just has very dramatic views. Kind of think of like with Red Rocks Amphitheater, a lot of the similar style of view here in Ken Caryl and North Ranch, because you have some of those similar red rock formations all around you, sometimes even within your own backyard. All right, you're almost halfway there. Let's talk about number 4. This one's gonna be Aurora. Now, Aurora is a lot different than these first 3 that I've shared with you, and mainly just because of its size and magnitude. Aurora is actually Denver's largest suburb, and it stretches from the edge of Denver east all the way towards DIA, and it really runs south along Parker Road towards Centennial and even that Cherry Creek Reservoir, which you'll see here on Google Maps, which is one of my favorite state parks and reservoirs that you can go to. Really, really nice. So definitely check out Cherry Creek. When it comes to statistics, the median sales price in Aurora was a bit lower than these others that I've shared so far with you. It was at $463,000. That comes out to about $226 per square foot. The days on market was significantly higher. It was actually 46 days. But it's also important to look at the median household income, which was significantly lower than the last couple that I've shared. For Aurora, it's actually only $84,320. Now, the population of Aurora is going to blow you away. We're talking 10, 15, 20 times the size of some of these others I've shared a few. Aurora's population this past year was actually listed out as 395,052 residents. That's a lot of people. And to close out these statistics, the schools were not quite as good as the first three suburbs. For Aurora, it was ranked as a B. Still a really good rating. Definitely also check out that niche.com website if you want a little bit more info on Aurora's schools. But the biggest ones that most residents feed into when they live in Aurora is going to be Rangeview and Grandview. Now, one other really cool thing to share about Aurora, it's oftentimes claimed to be Colorado's most racially diverse city in the state. So what that means is there are tons of restaurants and just a lot of different cultural stuff to do and take your family and friends to just right out your back door if you do live in Aurora. In fact, in this 5280 magazine, they claim they have over 250 ethnic restaurants just within the city of Aurora. Some of the most popular ones can be restaurants from Ethiopia, tons of really good Vietnamese restaurants, and even some Korean restaurants that aren't quite as common here in Denver, including one of the most famous, which is known as Seoul Korea Barbecue and Hot Pot. Definitely check that one out. It's one of my personal favorites. And just one last point before moving on, just really making another point about the scale and magnitude of Aurora. It is massive. We're talking 164 square miles, and that stretches all the way from Cherry Creek State Park on the southwest side all the way to Denver International Airport on that northeastern side of Aurora. And as you can imagine, that size gives you a huge variety when it comes to housing options for both renting and buying. You can find a lot of mid-century homes in the $500,000 range in areas like Highland Park, but also you can find massive mansions in Southeast Aurora in places like South Shore and even Painted Prairie, where you might find $1.5 million, $2 million and up homes. So a huge range when it comes to housing in Aurora. And in addition to the magnitude of types of houses, it also just comes down to the amount of open spaces and parks and trails and all of that good stuff, which I know for me is definitely a big deciding factor with what part of town to consider moving to. There's actually 103 parks in Aurora, over 5,000 acres of open space, and a ton of golfing. So any of my golfers out there watching, lots of opportunities when you live in Aurora. The city actually has 5 municipal courses, and that includes Murphy Creek, which is actually based off of that older Scottish style of links where you have a very open style of play. A little bit different than a lot of the other courses here in Denver and in Colorado. So another fun one to check out if you guys are golfers. All right, you guys made it halfway through the video. Really excited to share the last 4 with you, but just as a quick plug, if you guys haven't yet, make sure you guys click that link down below. I have this really helpful locals guide to Denver that I put together this year. It shares over 20 of my personal favorite neighborhoods, everything that you need to know from a Colorado native, and it just shares personal favorite restaurants, parks, bars, the schools in the area, what kind of homes to expect to buy in that part of town, just everything you need. So just click that link down below or scan the QR code, grab a free copy, no strings attached. All right, let's keep going. All right, so now we're gonna jump into number 5, again, on the top 8 Denver suburbs according to 5280 magazine. So number 5 is gonna be Westminster. Now, Westminster is actually one of the areas I spent a lot of time in because it's just to the north of Wheat Ridge, where I went to high school and grew up a lot of my life. So Westminster is unique. And the reason I say that is because it has changed significantly over the last couple decades, really since I graduated from high school. And what I want to bring up is just how, if you have maybe been out to Denver before and maybe you've had a bad taste in your mouth about Westminster, it's worth giving it a second look because there are still some awesome parts of Westminster to check out. I actually have a really close friend of mine that I sold their house just last week in Westminster, and it was incredible just how much interest and traffic came to this listing. We had it under contract in literally less than a day. So There's a lot of demand for people to be in this part of town. And it's also very close to Stanley Lake, where that Steamer's Coffee Shop and Jack's Sports Bar were located, where my sister used to work. So this Westminster area is very close to Arvada. And as far as where it's exactly located, as I said, it's just north of Arvada. It's west of Thornton, and it's really perfectly positioned in my opinion, because it is right off of Highway 36, which is your direct access point from Boulder to downtown Denver. And also it's just a very commuter-friendly part of town because you have easy access to all of the major interstates here in Denver. When it comes to statistics, the median sales price in Westminster was right at $550,000. The average days on market was 28 days, and the price per square foot was right at $280. It's also a lot larger suburb compared to some of the others I've shared. Not as big as Aurora, but similar in its scale and size. It's over 100,000 residents. In fact, it's 114,875. And when you look at the median home income for last year for Westminster, we're looking at $96,145. So when it comes to schools, Westminster also got pretty high marks, and I was a little surprised. I didn't think they'd score quite as high as they did. They were at a B+. And as far as what schools most residents feed into for high schools, we're looking at Westminster High School, Stanley Lake High School, and even Mountain Range. If you guys want more info though on any of the school-related stuff, check out niche.com. So as I talked about how Westminster is one of the best positioned suburbs in all of Denver, in my opinion, to talk a little bit more in depth on this, Westminster is really that perfect position where it's wedged right between Denver and Boulder along Highway US 36. And this Highway 36, it was actually built back in the 1950s for that reason, just to connect Boulder and Denver. So it's been around for a while, but it is always continuing to also see improvements, and it's just a very efficient highway. It tends, in my opinion, to go a little bit quicker than I-25 or even I-70. So definitely a good choice if you are in Westminster and you're needing to get down to downtown Denver. If you are a big outdoors person and you're looking for suburbs that have a lot of accessibility, I mentioned how Westminster has great access to Stanley Lake. Stanley Lake is actually the Metro Denver's third largest reservoir, and it has some awesome views looking all the way out to the west, a little bit to the north to see Boulder and the Boulder Flatirons, but also you can look further down to the south and southwest and see Golden. So great views from Stanley Lake, and again, it's just a great location. And one last thing before moving on to the next suburb, we're getting through this, you guys, is that in Westminster, if you're a dog lover and you have dogs, there is an awesome off-leash dog park. It's over 470 acres, and it's known as the Westminster Hills Open Space. If you have dogs, maybe bigger dogs that you just don't want to be getting pulled by the leash from them, take them up here. It's off leash, and it's got, again, awesome views. And you know what? I actually just thought of one more thing to share with you about Westminster. So when you're on this Highway 36 going from Boulder to Denver, one of the best shopping malls in all of Colorado is known as Flatirons. Flatirons Mall is right there. Considered Westminster, sometimes you'll also see it labeled as Broomfield. This is also where Rocky Mountain Airport is. I actually am a pilot, and I've done a lot of my flying out of this airport. But right across the street off of Highway 36, there's what's called the Butterfly Pavilion. If you've never heard of this before or never been, definitely check it out if you've got any young kids or really just anybody that's got a curiosity and just wants to see what a butterfly pavilion is. You go inside and there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of butterflies in this enclosed environment that's super warm and humid. You feel like you're in the jungle, and they're just flying all over the place. They're landing on your head and on your arm if you want them to. I've taken my sister there a few times, and it's always a great experience. So check out that Butterfly Pavilion if you guys want to go out and just explore a little bit in this Westminster Broomfield area. Okay, now let's move on to the next one. We're already up to number 6. Okay, number 6 is gonna be Central Park. So Central Park is a newer area, so you might not be that familiar with it if maybe you've spent a lot of time in Denver in the past, but not recently. But one thing that makes Central Park so cool is its very convenient location to downtown Denver, but also up to Denver International Airport. So if you're somebody that travels a lot for work, but you also really want to have a good blend of that urban lifestyle and close to all the restaurants and just stuff that's going on in Denver, I think this is definitely one of the spots you should have at the top of your list, Central Park. It's also known as Stapleton, which is actually where the old airport was. You can still see the aircraft control tower from Stapleton Airport. They've had different things over the years go into this space. There was an Alamo Draft House, some bowling alley related stuff, all kinds of just fun, different things going on in this kind of existing air traffic control part of the old airport, which is now part of this Stapleton and Central Park. but I just think this Central Park spot is really, really cool and definitely worth checking out. When it comes to statistics of Central Park, the median sale price last year was $678,000. If I'm not mistaken, I think this actually might be the highest of any of these that I've shared with you so far, which is a little surprising, to be honest with you. When it comes to days on market, it was exactly 30 days, so right at a month of how long it was taking for homes to sell here in Central Park. And the average dollar per square foot was at $298. So that higher price per square foot, that's dictating a little bit why the median sales price was also higher. When it comes to population, we were just under 32,000 residents. In fact, it was 31,596. And the median household income was also quite a bit higher, probably going along with the price point of the homes. The median household income was $166,191. When it comes to schools, this one got a solid B. Some of the schools that residents feed into, if you are in Central Park, are gonna be Northfield High School. And one thing I want to just point out about Northfield, they also have an IB program, which is an inter-baccalaureate program. Lakewood High School, which is in Lakewood, which is by Wheat Ridge, had this as well when I went to school. And this is just kind of a little bit higher level of high school for students that are really excelling in academics and wanting to stand out a little bit more as they apply for colleges. As far as where Central Park is located on a map, Central Park sits just northeast of Denver. It's right between that Northfield and Park Hill area, just south of I-70 and just east of downtown. One thing that's really cool about Central Park is you have a lot of access with public transportation, especially our light rail system. So Central Park has a term often used, which is that Central Park is Denver's ultimate suburb within the city. And what this might mean, as I said a few minutes ago about the old airport here, Stapleton, it really just has this new master plan community that has transformed from the airport into one of Denver's most beloved neighborhoods here in 2025. So it's really done a full 180 from what it was 25 years ago to where it is today. Before closing out on Central Park, the last thing I'll share again is how great it is from a walkability standpoint. It really is one of the best suburbs in all of Denver where you have that accessibility to light rail and public transportation, but also great parks, great restaurants, just a lot to do even within this pretty small footprint. Central Park's only about 7.5 square miles, but it still is packed with over 1,100 acres of parks and trails. So significant amount of opportunities for outdoor lifestyle right in the Central Park neighborhood. And when it comes to real estate, a wide range, kind of like Aurora had. You can find townhomes and even apartments that are in the $200,000 to $300,000 range, all the way up to multi-million-dollar mansions that are in some of the newer, nicer developments in Central Park. Definitely check it out if you guys are somebody that wants that perfect blend, because it is one of the best. All right, so at number 7, we're almost through this, you guys. At number 7, it's gonna be Inglewood. So Inglewood is a little bit lesser known suburb in my opinion. And I say that because it just doesn't have quite as much of a footprint. There's not quite as much going on as some of these others that I've shared with you today, but Inglewood still has some awesome stuff to enjoy if you're a resident here. So when it comes to some of the statistics of Inglewood, its median sales price last year was $620,000. The days on market were at 58, so quite a bit higher, just showing you again that there might not be quite as much of a demand here, but the average price per square foot was above the $300 mark. It was actually $318 per square foot. Population here, just over 34,000 residents, 34,275, and the median household income was only $82,016. It's about half of what some of these other areas like Aurora were claiming. When it comes to schools, this one's a little bit below, but very similar. It's a B-. And if you are a resident here in Inglewood, most likely you're gonna be going to Inglewood High School. As far as where Inglewood is located on a map, Inglewood is just south of Denver, like I said, nestled right between South Broadway and the Denver Tech Center. You know, neighbors are very affluent if you're in this Inglewood area. You've got area like Cherry Hills, also parts of Littleton that have very expensive private communities. This Cherry Hills area, as an example, that's where most of the professional athletes and a lot of the very, very successful and affluent business owners live. We're talking 10, 15, $20 million homes. So you have very, very, very expensive homes all around Inglewood. Inglewood, though, also has one of my favorite music venues known as the Gothic Theater. Definitely, if you guys are a live music fan in the winter months, just the colder times of year in Denver, Gothic is a great spot to check out. It's even had some of the most famous bands in the world play there, including one of my favorite grunge bands, Nirvana. Now, this is a little bit more of a congested, or at least just more dense area compared to some of the others that I've shared with you. It doesn't have quite as many parks and trails available, but it does have 15 and over 20 miles of trails. So not nearly as much as some of the others, but it also is a lot smaller of an area. The last thing I'll leave you with when it comes to Inglewood, since it doesn't have quite as much to share as some of these bigger suburbs, is just that Inglewood is known as Denver's next door neighbor to the south. It's really been going through an awesome revival over the last 10 years, especially along that stretch of South Broadway that I mentioned. You know, just when you think about South Broadway, just picture public art, lots of farmers markets, fresh landscaping, lots of cool local funky types of businesses, and there's even a really fun music festival known as UMS, the Underground Music Showcase. So check that out again if you guys are into live music. All right, you guys, you made it. Number 8. I know this was a long one today, so I'm super pumped to finally get to number 8. And I saved this one by no choice of my own, but it happened to be number 8, Wheat Ridge. This is where I grew up. This is where I went to high school. This is an area that I've spent probably about 20 years of my life living in. And I'm just super pumped and excited that they included Wheat Ridge in this top 8 Denver suburbs. So I'll share a little bit more about why I loved living in Wheat Ridge for so long. But when it comes to the statistics and where Wheat Ridge is located on a map, let's talk about that first. So as far as where Wheat Ridge is located on a map, Wheat Ridge is just west of Sloan Lake and Edgewater, just north of Lakewood, just south of Arvada, and it really is that perfect entry point into the foothills. It really gives you this opportunity in a lot of cases to have a home with a little bit more space, not quite as tight with your neighbors, a little bit more peace and quiet potentially, and that quick access not only to I-70 to get up to the ski areas, but also just to get out slightly west to Applewood, where the brand new Lutheran Hospital development just got finished. As far as the statistics go, median home price last year was $625,000. That's $328 a square foot. The median days on market was right at 32 days. The population of Wheat Ridge, a bit smaller than some of these other areas today we've talked about. It was at 31,804 residents. And the median household income was $87,598. When it came to schools, I was a little bit surprised to see it actually got ranked as a B+. So I'm just gonna be completely honest with you guys. I thought that Wheat Ridge, back when I went to school there, I graduated in 2001, we always had this rivalry with Golden, our next door neighbor school. And Golden back then was inferior, in my personal opinion, to Wheat Ridge. And now, fast forward 20 years, it's almost the reverse. I think Golden has a little bit higher ratings when it comes to niche.com, as well as just a lot of personal feedback I've received from friends and family. But I think Wheat Ridge, though, still is always gonna be one of the best suburbs just because of its location. So I talked about how it's close to I-70 and also has that really good accessibility to the mountains into Applewood, where the brand new Lutheran Hospital just got finished. So with Wheat Ridge, one of the great things that I've shared about in other videos, as well as earlier on this one, is just about the location being really close to I-70, allowing you to get up to the mountains really, really fast. I'd say one of the best suburbs in all of Denver when it comes to just the ease of getting to and from the mountains. For example, Saturday morning, you want to go skiing, leaving from Wheat Ridge, as opposed to leaving from maybe somewhere further north like Thornton, or maybe even further southeast like Aurora, you're shaving off a solid 30 minutes, if not longer, of a commute to go skiing just by being on this western side of town. Now, when I grew up here, I had the old Lutheran Hospital still existing, which was off of 38th Avenue. And this has completely transformed now since moving the entire hospital out to Applewood, which is just on the western side of Wheat Ridge. Think of Applewood as kind of the middle ground between Wheat Ridge and Golden. And man, over the last couple years, with all this new development being finished with Lutheran Hospital, there is now a ton of other cool stuff going on here. In fact, there's this brand new development going in where they have food trucks, different sorts of beer gardens. One of the places is called Recess. And what they're doing is they're gonna have 3 or 4 different businesses taking up a very large footprint of land, and they're gonna have it kind of like Las Vegas style, where it's an open carry. You can buy a beer at one place, you can just walk all throughout this entire area. It has direct access to the trail system if you wanna maybe ride your bike from here and go to downtown Golden for the day, or even connect with the Green Belt, which goes through all of Wheat Ridge. Really cool, just outdoor space. So just a lot of new stuff happening in Wheat Ridge, which is really exciting because Wheat Ridge has always been a little bit of a sleepier, older type demographic. You know, it's got a lot of people still in Wheat Ridge that are maybe potentially the first homeowners, or maybe still somebody that's been in the home for 30, 40, 50 years or longer. And now they're getting to that age where they need to find a retirement home or move on to the next chapter of their life. So there's a lot of opportunities in Wheat Ridge to find value add homes and just properties that might need a little bit of fixing up, but can maybe purchase them at a little bit lower of a price point. So good news for some people that maybe are a bit handy, but just wanted to share with you guys that Wheat Ridge is one of my favorites. I'm so glad it's on this list and a great spot to check out if you haven't yet. Woo! Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I know we went through a lot today and very fast, kind of drinking from a fire hose. I just wanted to make sure I got all 8 of these into one video versus spreading it out over 2 or 3. I want to respect your time, so we'll end it with that. But one last time, check out 5280 Magazine's article all about this. I pulled all my info today from this brand new article, May of 2025 edition, which is titled 8 of the metro area's hottest suburbs. Check it out for yourself. I'll link the website down below if you want to read the digital version. And with that, I just want to close this out by again saying thank you and just reminding you guys, you know, I am a human being. I make these videos every week and I love talking to you. I love connecting with you. So all that info on the screen, would love just a chance to connect. Shoot me a text, give me a call, send me an email, really whatever's the most convenient for you. I just want to connect and just hopefully find a few ways to share value with you, even if you're not seriously considering moving here for another year or 2, or you're still on the fence trying to decide if Denver's even the right spot. I know that we would have a good opportunity to connect and I can share some more one-on-one advice with you and help you make that decision. Until next week, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Don't forget, hit that like and that subscribe button down below. And I look forward to a brand new episode with you next week on an all-new episode of Living in Denver. I'll see you guys then. Bye.